Good morning, guys. It's AJ. I'm going to be reading from Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 and 13 today. It's really cool and I think pretty applicable, so let's dive in. Paul says, "Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now, not only as in my presence, but much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you both to will and to work for his good pleasure." So the reason I said this is applicable is because, man, like we are absent from each other. Now we have Zoom, we have FaceTime, we have Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. But as far as like being in person with each other, like we're absent, and it's the reality. And this is also what is going on with the relationship between the Philippians and Paul. Paul's in jail. He's writing him letters. They don't know the next time he'll be able to get this letter to him. So they're absent from each other. But just as Paul was saying, this is a perfect time for us to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. And I think a very easy and practical way of doing that is working on the fruit of the Spirit. So that's found in Galatians 5, verses 22 and 23. I think you could do that with your family, with your friends online, with your neighbors, if that's applicable, depending on where you are. That is a very tangible way of God's grace working through you. And then the next 2 points really is the good news. The first one being when it says God is working in us, both to will and to work for his good. The first part, will. I don't know about you guys, like there's some days where I'm just like, man, I don't want to go gym, but I know I need to go. And I kind of, there's this tension between like, I should go, but I don't want to. And it's like, I want to want. And that is the same thing with God working in us here. Like there's days where we're like, man, I just struggle to get into God's word. I struggle praying. I struggle even showing up to a Zoom call on a Bible study or a weekly meeting, whatever it may look like. But the good news is that God is going to continue to work our will into us, his will into us. So as we behold Jesus, as we are in community of believers who are continuing to point you back to Christ, like the Spirit is going to enable you to want to desire these spiritual disciplines more. And then the second point is work for his good pleasure. That idea or that word work has a negative connotation a lot of times, but man, this is really, really good news. Like we get to be the tangible grace, the tangible mirrors of who Jesus is by loving the Lord with all our heart, mind, and soul, and loving our neighbors as ourselves, and so much more. But God is continuing to work in us so that we could work for his good pleasure. So we have the freedom to go out and do this. Remember, none of this matters unless it was for Jesus dying on the cross for us. So with all this being said, with all these fear and trembling and working on our salvation, like, man, we are free to go and do that because Jesus first freed us from our slavery of sin. So let that dwell on you guys today and go out and do something. Not literally outside, but go out and work on your salvation, whether it's meditating or praying, reaching out to a friend, sharing the gospel. Cool. Love you guys. Stay connected.